Welcome to Module 2 of this series of introductory talks about the Care Quality Commission and its implications for GP practices in England. This module examines in a little more detail what practices need to do to prepare for their formal application to be registered. Of course, if you've already done this and everything is in place for your registration from April 2013, well done. You might choose to skip this module and move on to one of the later ones which deal in more detail with aspects of being registered with the CQC. So let's summarise what this second module covers. We will work through how the process of applying works, as well as the deadlines and timescales that need to be met. And we'll also cover the 5 main stages of the process, focusing on the decisions that every practice, big or small, will need to be taking during this registration period. It's worth reminding ourselves of the timescales for your CQC registration. You're probably familiar with the date of April 2013, when this becomes compulsory. But of course this is only when registration first comes into legal force, and the process of preparing for your application should already have begun. And if Father Christmas comes along before you've submitted your surgery's application this year, then you will have missed the CQC's deadlines. But don't panic, contact CQC Assist, and I'm sure we can find a way forward. So, let's look at the process of actually applying. The CQC has simplified the application process for GP practices. You will be applying online, and there is a special section on the CQC website for this. Now this is very helpful in outlining some of the detail of how to handle your application, so we won't duplicate this here. But of course if you do have any questions, then CQC Assist will be happy to help. So let's look at the 5 broad stages of the process for your application and the decisions that all practices will need to be taking. Because without addressing these decisions, it will be very difficult to progress your application. The first set of issues to tackle is sorting out lead responsibilities within your practice for CQC issues. For example, you will need to choose someone to be your nominated lead. He or she will be the person who actually signs off the formal application on behalf of the practice, which is an important legal step. So, for a GP partnership, this should generally be one of the partners themselves. You will also need to sort out who will be the named contact for routine CQC communications, and this may well be your practice manager. You will need to indicate this when you first create your online account with the CQC, which can be done by using a special login code that will be sent direct to your practice. A slightly more complex area may be identifying your registered manager. This is the person who accepts overall day-to-day responsibility for the services being registered with the CQC. Generally this should be a GP partner or someone else who actually controls directly how the services are organised and managed. So if you're not quite sure about this, do check on the CQC website where there's plenty of guidance about nominating your registered manager. And note that normally someone other than your practice manager should be your registered manager for the CQC. Secondly, let's look at some of the basic issues that you will need to decide. Make sure you're registering for the correct service areas. This is crucial since if you forget to include some of your practice services in your application, you might not be able to provide these legally after April 2013. Here again, check on the CQC website about which services you should be putting forward for registration, and if you're not sure, do contact me at CQC Assist. You will also need to decide about which locations you offer services from. Normally, this is very easy for you to decide, for instance if you only have one main surgery, but if you have a number of branch surgeries, then you may also need to include these as separate locations for your application. Be careful to check out the guidance here as well, and in case of doubt, just ask. Another important set of decisions for your practice is whether or not you comply with the core standards of the CQC. Incidentally, don't worry if you feel you don't fully comply at present with all of these standards. Unless there's a direct risk to patients, the CQC may well agree to give you initial registration and then allow you some time to sort out the problem. All the CQC standards are outlined in their essential standards of quality and safety. You may well find you need some help with working through all these and checking that any risks are prioritised. If so, just contact us at CQC Assist, since we have a number of tools to support you with this. And before you start to check your compliance, you will need to decide your service type, since some of the CQC standards apply only to particular types of service provider. The services most likely to apply to your practice will be referred to as doctor's consultation services or doctor's treatment services. And here, out of information, is an extract from the CQC's Essential Standards document. As you can see, it is not particularly easy to interpret at first sight, so just ask us if you have any difficulty in working this out for your own particular circumstances. And as you'll see, the service types are abbreviated, in the case of GP practices, normally to DCS or DTS, which helps you sort out which particular standards will apply to you. So let's move on to stage 4 of your practice's decision making in advance of making your CQC application. This involves sorting out any action plans needed for any of the outcome standards with which you're not currently complying. These action plans form part of your online application to the CQC. You will need to outline what the practice is planning to do to address the problem area, including by when and with what resources. Completing the action plan section of the online application is easy enough, but the practice may well need to discuss making some tough choices here, especially if large items of expenditure are felt to be needed. And don't forget, you're almost certainly going to be monitored closely by the CQC to make sure that your action plans are actually translated into reality. Your final set of decisions about your practice's CQC application should be fairly straightforward, such as what dates do you wish to submit on? And this will be one of 4 28-day windows allowed during autumn 2012. And who will actually draft up the online application form for your practice? Who will be responsible for ensuring formal approval on behalf of the practice before it's submitted? And don't forget that it's a legal offence to submit an application if you know it is incorrect, such as if you are aware you don't comply with a particular key outcome standard. And also, who will actually press the submit button for your application? This concludes the second module. To summarise, make sure that you start preparing for your CQC application as soon as you can. And in particular, you will need to make sure the practice board is fully involved in working through the 5 sets of key decisions mentioned. The most complex area will probably be working out whether or not you currently comply with all the CQC outcome standards. And as always, if you're not sure about anything, we will be happy to help with your query.